Christian family? And second, why are you talking about sports, right? I want to ask you, what do you think makes a good team? What makes a good team?
Teamwork.
Get all the way to the conference
It's
finals,
the teamwork.
the biggest tournaments, the biggest leagues. So, besides star players, what do you think makes a good team?
Funds. Cohesion.
Fans? Yes, I agree. What else?
Merch.
Merch.
Actually, merch
Money.
makes a lot of the
Sponsorship.
sponsorships. Okay, and
Teamwork.
thank you, teamwork. Okay, what else?
Yeah.
A good coach, right?
Good coach, yeah.
Good
And a
coach.
star player.
Mhm. And a star player. Okay. Practice, obviously. Knowing how to communicate with one another. I've seen a couple of highlights over the past bit recently where a lot of players after the trade deadlines in February in the NBA, because they had never played with their teammates, they missed like so many plays because they didn't know any of them, right? And they didn't know how to communicate with other team members. Also, I want to say spending time with one another, right? A good team spends time with one another. I love going through some of the stories of teams that I do like because you get to hear how some of the veteran players initiate the rookies, which is kind of funny sometimes. But also because they really look out for the newer players and the younger players, trying to tell them how to navigate their lives as celebrity athletes, right? But also how to navigate their organizations, how to play. And then you get some funny stories along the way, like Kawhi Leonard and Kyle Lowry going out for cookies past midnight, right? I'm only going off the Toronto Raptors, okay? Or how before DeMar DeRozan would take a lot of the rookie players out shopping because his salary was much larger than those of the rookie players, right? I like these things. And these aspects, having a good coach, teamwork, all of that, okay, merch sometimes, yes. But all of these are what makes a good team. And I think you can see where I'm going with this. These teams are idioms for families, right? So before we get into talking more about a Christian family, I'll tell you a little bit more about myself too. Because I would say that it was in this ministry that I've learned a lot about how to work with teams and groups. So I did my SFC CLP in, you ready for this? 2012. That was a really long time ago. I think it was actually this weekend because I know it was a May weekend of 2012. So I was the baby, I guess, for a really long time of the group that I had. This is us at a bubble tea spot right after my CLP graduation. There were so many of us. We totally slammed the bubble tea place down. But there's a lot of support. And I looked up to a lot of them, being younger than a lot of them as well, being the youngest, I think, that had joined at the time. But I learned a lot through them. And I've grown so much since then. How to be a better community member, how to be a better Catholic. They've walked with me through good times, bad times, and led me to discover a lot more about how to live as a single adult, because there's a lot of fruit that comes at this time in your lives, right? And today I get to walk with my own little household group. So you have discussion groups in your CLP, and these continue afterwards as a member of the SFC community. We meet regularly. And I've learned recently that 2 of my members have a relation to Brother Angelo and Sister Sheila through their time in the Philippines, which is kind of cool. That was a really cool connection. But yeah. And over here, this is a picture from the recent SFC National Conference, which we nicknamed the TNC, or the True North Conference. And these are a lot of the members from all around Canada joining together. We met in Winnipeg last summer. And so these are some of the pictures from day to day. So you're in a I bet you feel a lot of love in the room you're in now, but it goes past the physical walls of that room into a whole country. Through some of my experiences within ministry and my own studies, it really helped me out with this idea of serving and helping out with music. And I discovered more of how I could own this gift of music that I'm really grateful to God for. I've served often within one of these ministries in the Couples for Christ community called Live Loud, where members from all around the world write music, and we work on creating recordings and concerts all around the world through its members, who are the crew, are the band, are the promo. They do it all. So the top video over here in yellow, that is from the last Toronto concert in 2023. And then the one below it was from Portugal in 2023 for World Youth Day. We got to, Live Loud got to perform and lead a praise and worship concert right before the Pope came in, which was kind of neat. And I've also met some other people within community, and we started a band. So that's my band on the left side. Our band name is Simple. And yeah, I'm really grateful to God and for what he's done through a lot of my experiences within community to kind of own this gift of music. And I've also realized through Catholic lifestyle in the community how much I can help others and also enjoy it. And so I became an elementary school teacher. Right now I'm on a break just to recharge and work on some music, but I am a teacher librarian and also a music teacher. So those are my kids with their blurred faces drumming on buckets there. Oftentimes my coworkers will say, how did you learn how to speak to a big group? How did you learn how to connect to a projector? How did you learn how to use Teams? And I often tell them church, community, because this place has taught me a lot. But even before that, it was my family. So this is my family. This is my team. My parents, Ray and Elvira over here. I have two sisters, Renee and Isabel. This is my brother-in-law, Ron, and these are their wonderful children, Elise, Rowan, Eleanor, and Eileen. So my parents joined CFC, or Couples for Christ, in 1998 after moving to Canada from New York City in the early 90s. They often refer back to God's kind of hand in their lives throughout community because they often say like it repaired their marriage and it gave them an extended family here in Canada, because I don't have any cousins, they don't have any siblings that also live in Canada. So that's it's been a part of our lives for a lot of reasons, for our faith, but also through family, through extending and being part of a community. Interestingly as well, my sister Isabel met Ron, her now husband, through Singles for Christ as well. Now they have 4 children. We've had really, really great times, of course, as a family. There's been a lot of joy, but like every family, we've gone through some really tough times together. But our faith is what keeps us going, even when it's tough. Our faith has taught us to be more trusting, more selfless, joyful, hopeful, through good times and bad, through every season. Season, get it? Because we were talking about sports teams. Okay, I'll move on. So, why are we talking about this, right? Because you are part of a Christian family, or you are part of a family. Although my family is absolutely not perfect, and no family is, God's grace and the effort he blesses us with when we pray for it and ask him for help helps us and our families to move forward towards him. And this is what he intended it to be in the beginning. We learn about this in the book of Genesis, which is which book in the Bible? Anyone know? First book. Thank you. It's the first book. This is where we talk about the creation of the world and God's creation of Adam and Eve, and intending Adam and Eve to be stewards, to be fruitful and to multiply, to have family, right? And it was perfect, but we all know the story. It didn't happen to according to how beautiful God planned it to be. Sin enters the picture through the snake, through Satan, and that is the first attempt of destroying a family. But why families, you may wonder? Why didn't we address this as individuals? Or why didn't, why didn't Satan or sin enter um, through just Adam, right? Or just Eve? Why was it both of them? Because love begets love. It begins in the family. The family is life's first school. And in a bigger and general sense, the family is a building block for society. It is the cradle of every vocation, every child and their path and their dream. And the cradle of the beginnings of God's plan for every human being. So as an institution, the family is under attack on many fronts. Marriages are being broken. The definition of a family is being challenged. No family is perfect, but our families are gifts from God. Pope Francis affirms us in saying that, I thank God that many families which are far from considering themselves perfect live in love, fulfill their calling, and keep moving forward even if they fall many times along the way. The Synod's reflections show us that there's no stereotype of the ideal family, but rather a challenging mosaic made up of many different realities, with all their joys, hopes, and problems. Let's talk a little bit more about God's plan for the family. So, God has first intended the family to be a transmission of life. In God's plan, the Christian family is a community of life and love. Each family is the home of God, and its members belong to God. Parents they have their children, and they regard their children as children of God and respect them as human persons. It makes sense that God created man, male and female, with their physiology for them to be able to increase, to multiply, and to fill the earth. God intended man and woman to be one, not as independent individuals, but as husband and wife raising a family. Of course, there are times when families don't end up this way for whatever reason. We acknowledge that God still has great love and graces for all of us in whatever state of life we're in, but his intention and what we believe is the best way is really written in this plan for humanity through husband and wife and their children. What else has God intended for the family? God has intended for the family to be a place for teaching children and training leaders. The family is a place to transmit wisdom, values of life. The overall education of a child is this most serious duty and at the same time a primary right of children. This isn't just a task or a burden, but an essential and an inalienable right that parents are called to defend and of which no one can claim to deprive them of. Parents have their first responsibility for the education of their children. They bear witness to this responsibility first by creating a home where tenderness, forgiveness, respect, fidelity, and service are the rule. This teaching comes not really in formal ways like how you and I may have learned in a classroom, but it comes through the regular things in daily life at home. For example, I've learned patience. I'm still learning patience, to be honest, but I've learned a lot of patience through watching my dad cook, watching him, pick the ingredients, prepare them, put them on the stove, wait for them to feed it, and to check everything along the way. And also I've learned through patience because Dad, I'm hungry. I'm hungry, and you got to wait until the food is done. But there's a lot of virtues to be taught just in a kitchen, right? I've learned to care for others through watching my mother care for myself and my sisters. I've learned to be a team player, honestly, not through sports as much as it was through learning how to clean the house with my siblings. It's of utmost importance to help mold children and have them grow in maturity through the ways that they pour out their love throughout the home. As a teacher, I often see students who, you can kind of tell they've already cultivated a lot of, a lot of, I'd say, life lessons and virtues through their home lives. And I also see children who learn a lot of this mostly at school. And while as teachers at school, we're going to work on these virtues, They will always model after their families first, because in these extremely formative times of their life, they're with their families for almost all of it, right? Yes, they spend a lot of their time at school, but most of their time in their day is at home. You might say, wait, but they're asleep for half of that time. I'd say, even in the aspects of sleep, like preparing for it, ensuring the sleep happens, what happens afterwards, there's virtue to be taught there too. You might also say, like, okay, Elena, there are Catholic schools in Ontario. Virtues aren't only part of the curriculum through family life and religious education in Catholic schools. Sorry, they are taught there. However, the application of it, yeah, they can apply it at recess at school when they're playing with one another, working on projects. But the reality is, most of the application of these virtues happens in your home life, right? Finally, God intended the family to be beautiful through being the domestic church. Domestic. Anyone know what that means? It means at home, right? It's the church at home. The spirituality of the family love is made up of thousands of small but real gestures. For example, parents as the heads of their family, and I'd say even men, to understand their God-given role as a father is also to be like a priest to their family. They present God to their families by being a living example of a Christian and diligently teaching them by use of scripture, by use of symbols. They also present their families to God through family prayer. The family, like the church, ought to be a place where the gospel is transmitted and from where the gospel really comes alive. In a family that is really conscious of this understanding that the gospel is what needs to be taught, those members go beyond their families to bring God to others. And the parents they not only communicate the gospel to their children, but they also receive lessons of the gospel by seeing their children themselves and see it lived by them. And through that, the family becomes a giver of God's love and grace to other families and their neighborhoods and their communities. Mothers as well. Mothers can model after Mother Mary, who, continues to radiate the love of God just as she loved her son, continuing to pray for the family and showing support to all the members of the family. Like Mother Mary was the heart of the home, teaching virtue and faith. So can mothers be too. It's a beautiful plan. It's a beautiful plan that God has for all of us. But as you can see, in a lot of the families, the plan's not happening. Why isn't this plan happening? I'd say society has changed, obviously. Society has become increasingly individualistic, and families are no exception to this part. Most people are focused more on themselves rather than their families, and families have lost a lot of direction and purpose. God has lost his central place in the family, which is a reason why this plan isn't happening. What does this look like? Parents not regarding faith within their families and bringing up their children in the instruction of the gospel. A lot of parents are also seeking other resources, which aren't bad, right? As in general, unless they're explicitly, you know, leading us to do the wrong things. But psychology and its study, it is a gift from God, but it's not the only source. And these sources will never explain the supernaturality of love and grace that abounds in life when God is at the center of it. God and our faith should be the central source of raising our children. Husbands and wives, these couples may not be following God's order for them. The roles God has designed for them are maybe put to the side or confused, or there's like a struggle between who should do this. How do we listen to one another? Commitment to one another becomes shaky, not only with things like infidelity, but also with personal pursuits that don't include their partners. They cannot be depended on, and their partners become insecure. Furthermore, there's a lot more importance within families on acquiring material possessions and having a life that is comfortable and easy. Um, you know, it's not bad to want your daily bread, but if it becomes more than becomes more than you know um, than just what we need and other basic comforts, if that becomes more of the focus, then it can bring um, a lot of challenges to a family. Um, if we're only looking at marriage as, oh, this is an easier way to split the finances, to split the rent, the mortgage. This is an easier way for us to pool our wealth so that we can, invest more and more and more and try and build that wealth. You know, um, God will continue to provide for us, but if that becomes the main focus within a family, the challenges that arise out of that are really big and difficult. You know, what we should be focused on, things that really bind and last forever, is love and faith. You know, at the end of our lives, where does all that money go? We can't take it with us. God's plan isn't happening because the family itself within society is also losing importance. The pace of modern life has become really, really, really fast, really fast. And now with our phones as well, there's like constant, like um, stimulation in our brains of what we need to do, what we need to focus on, or even just taking us into like brain rot territory, right? And that has become more important than sitting with a family member in a lot of places. That makes it really difficult for relationships to develop and to grow. I think even within the eyes of our careers, we look at busy as being good. I'm so guilty of that, of telling people, or of showing that, hi, I'm doing all of these things, or I'm really busy, I've got a lot of things to do, is a sign of success and a sign of like positivity in my life, but it's not. This culture of busyness gets us to fill up our schedules with way too much, and it takes us away from the things that are really important, like our families. As I mentioned earlier, I'm on a break from work. I've been a teacher for 10 years, and I really, really look up to teachers who have gone through their whole entire careers not needing to take a breath. I really needed to take a breath. And so as part of this breath, I've actually moved back. I was living in Toronto, but I moved back in with my parents. Um, and being back with them so far has made me really realize that being really, really busy was taking away from my time with them. And the reality is as well is that my parents are getting older, right? So to kind of come back and to spend even just the little things like sitting at a table with them every day, um, has made me realize like this is special and this is important. At first, I wondered if maybe me taking this break was a step backwards in my life, right? Um, but I realized that taking a break from busyness, um, it only looks bad to what I think society is kind of telling us, right? Um, and in fact, what I am doing is taking a step forward into spending like quality time with my family. Not just here, I also got to spend it after a really long time. I got to see my family in the Philippines after a really, really long time. Um, and, we're not getting any younger. So this time is really valuable. For families as well, the responsibilities of rearing children and even entertainment have been taken over by different things in society. We're talking about schools being looked at as this is the only place to learn. Families are also a place where people teach and learn. Livelihood only comes from going to work, or like that pickleball. You got a pickleball game after this, and oh, I need to meet with my friend right after this, or I need to go shopping or something. These are things that have taken up a lot of this quality time that could be happening with our families. Furthermore, the family has become dispensable. And this is happening through people really looking at things like separation and divorce as things that are just, that's normal, right? Of course, nobody wants it. No one wants it. But because it is an option, some people may regard this as like, okay, if this doesn't work out, we can just do this, right? And this culture of dispensing things when they're not working out anymore or when they don't feel right has become very evident in the way that we deal with one another. Because some of us have probably done this with friendships. Some of us have probably done this with siblings, every time I see you, like my blood pressure rises. So that means I got to shut you out. Sometimes you got to do that in life. Sometimes God is not intended for your paths to be with one another. But when it comes to family, that is the first place. That is the first place you are brought into this world. God intends that. And so that's something that stays with you. That's something that stays with you. And shouldn't be the first thing to drop when things get tough. So, what do we do as single adults? It's clear that this vision for the family is beautiful, and that when we put God at the center of our families and put our focus back on the family, that beautiful things can happen. But why does this matter to us? Most of us don't have our own families yet. Also, a lot of us probably live away from our families. We're journeying into something in the future. But my friends, what is your first role in your life? The first role in your life from birth. Does anyone know? It's to be a child.
Yeah.
Your first role in life is to be a child. And God even makes this serious through the sacrament of baptism. Your lifelong calling is to be a child of God. But even in this human sense, your first vocation is to be a child in your family. For us as single adults, a lot of us are gifted with this particular dispensability of time. We've got a lot of time on our hands to pursue the things we want to pursue. Where does this time go? Your careers are important. Yeah. Where God wants you to serve is important. Yes. But your family is also important. Your family is also a place for you to serve. So our call within our families is to be sources of unity, encouragement, and hope, even as single adult children. And I'd say especially so as single adult children, because we have the ability to communicate and provide as adults things that we couldn't really do maybe as 12 years old with, no income, right? Or no ability to move around to get the resources that you needed. So what can we do? 3 simple ways, okay? First thing that might be suggested to us to help us to be sources of unity, encouragement in our hope in families is to eat. Eating. Anyone know what's happening in the background?
Poodles,
Poodle fight. Okay. It's this tradition within Filipino culture to lay a bunch of food on banana leaves, to go in it with your hands, and to be doing this with a lot of people, right? There's a really, really simple and beautiful thing about it. But eating is a simple and beautiful thing because it's a symbol of togetherness. At the table, we talk, we listen to one another, we nourish our relationships at the table through making this like a fellowship with the members of our family. We're physically present with one another. My family, we really thrive on this. It's always been a place of gathering and a place where people come to prepare, show our love, our appreciation, and clean up together. But especially so after family fights or arguments, this is a place where our problems start to resolve. When I was a teenager, going into a young adult, and even I'll admit sometimes now in my 30s, my dad and I often argued a lot. And it's honestly because our personalities are so similar. It's so strange sometimes where personalities are so similar that they actually clash a lot, right? But I always knew when our apologies were present or coming into presence, because even when we were, silent, sitting at a table with one another, that was the first sign of offering. That was the first sign of humility. That was the first sign where our hardened hearts eventually began to open up. And maybe it's because like our bellies were pushing against them because we were eating. But the reality is that eating with my family was really special. It was a place of love. Pope Francis reminds us that a family that hardly ever eats together, or does not talk but watches television or looks at their phones, is a barely familial family. When children are engrossed with a computer at the table or a phone or don't talk to one another, that's not a family. It's like a boarding house. You are living away from your family and can make the visit, make it happen. If you are living away from your family and can call them, make those hours meet just so that you can virtually eat with them, make it happen. You know, it's a special way just to connect, and to show that, we love one another. Eat. Next thing you can do is pray. Praying as a family, consecrating our families to God. If you have the opportunity to, a common prayer time can really help with this. This was something we did as kids. It was easier to do it as kids because we all lived in the same house. But our lives changing also changed our prayer habits. So what we try to do now is when we go to mass on Sunday, we try to do it all together, even though we live in different cities. Then we have lunch together right afterwards. Now that I'm on a break from work, I get to have breakfast with my parents, my retired parents. And when we have breakfast, we listen to the readings of the day together. So the readings that they would do at Mass. It's 3 to 5 minutes of quiet and listening with a bit of like munching and slurping of coffee. It's something that we do, but it's a special time where, I feel the spirit present with our family. One of the things that really helped my family out was also being part of the community together. When I joined SFC back in 2012, my parents, who were CFC members, actually became the CFC couple that was responsible for heading and taking care of our group, kind of like Brother Angelo and Sister Sheila. It was here that I got to pray with them, serve with them, and we got to see each other in a totally different light because it was beyond our homes. And one of the cool things was that my fellow members in SFC, they became like extended children of my parents. And there was a time when I'd come home from school or from work, and there would be some other 20 or 30-year-old adult there just hanging with my parents, and it was a special time. Something I noticed a few nights ago was that my parents had kept praying the prayer that we used to say together when we were kids at night. I overheard my dad saying it out loud a couple nights ago while my mom, who was beside him, had actually fallen asleep. So it was praying with snoring on the side. But it was still the same prayer that we used to say as kids. And I want to affirm my dad here because his heart has always been set on this part of leading his family through prayer, even if we're not physically present with him. And with all the things that have happened in our lives, good and bad, I can never doubt that his perseverance in prayer and asking for God's graces was a special part of keeping us together. So we have eating, we have praying. Probably guess the last one if you know the book or the movie. Eat, pray, love. Make time for the task of building a strong family. God really dwells in real and concrete families with all their daily troubles and struggles, joys and hopes. Examining your daily life to ensure that you can make time for your family and to have quality time together is really important. Be ready to reduce other things that are happening in your life if necessary, because family should be one concrete part of that schedule. That could be through a recreational time. That could be maybe through a trip or a vacation if that allows for it, or other activities, whatever works for your family. At one point, it was playing video games together. when we were kids, my mom noticed that we really, really liked the N64, and we weren't really talking with her as much. So she learned how to play a lot of the games we played. And then eventually my mom became a full-on gamer. She was playing Final Fantasy, Zelda on her DS, on her phone, on her computer. She was totally into it. She's gone way farther than I have because I don't play computer games, but it was a nice part. It was a nice gesture that she did. She created an opportunity for us to love one another through playing video games together. So you know your families. Um, if you know and understand the role that each person has, and you encourage them to do that, and you show them love through that, that's the way to do it. This is an image of what an Israelite home 2,000 years ago might have looked like. This might have been Jesus's family home, the way it would have looked like when he was a child. So here, this is where a domestic church was. No, I don't see, the life with his family until his ministry started at 30.